Welcome to Durban in South Africa, the host of the latest round of UN climate change talks. Nearly 200 countries, 12 days and one international deal on the table. Will the world agree to fight climate change with a united face? Coming up in the show, a new US oil boom threatens to spoil intentions to curb carbon emissions. Economic arguments are likely to trump environmental ones. Next, the developing world's dependence on foreign investments to help it battle climate change takes a turn for the worse. We head to Uganda, where carbon credit schemes are driving people from their land. And finally, China may not have signed the Kyoto Protocol, but it has made voluntary efforts of its own. We speak to the farmers who are finding it particularly hard to adapt. Most of the delegates who came to Durban came so with the intention of finding concrete solutions to fight climate change, just like this bike which creates electricity which lights up the baobab tree as I ride. However, the United States has been accused of coming with bad intentions. Signing a global deal is not a priority, and perhaps one of the reasons is a wealth of untapped oil reserves now readily accessible.
Normally, living in the parking lot of a Walmart would be considered a hardship, but for Alan Hafeman, it's an opportunity.
The wages out here are just crazy compared to back home. I said, if you can even find a job.
Alan, like thousands of others here, have come to Williston, North Dakota because it's a boom town. All across this small town are for hire notices, and everyone has oil to thank. Every month, 200 oil wells are dug up on these plains to tap into the biggest oil reserves ever found in the US. The town can hardly keep up.
It is amazing. It's
driving us around, Mayor Kosa can't quite believe it. No foreclosures here. This boom is transforming everything. The population has nearly doubled here in the past 3 years, and few are thinking about climate change or global warming.
They get a little frustrated when the government tries to tell them what to do, because they say, hey, we take better care of our resources than you do. So who are you to be telling us how to do this? There's not a lot of people here who lay awake at night worrying about global warming, I'll put it that way.
On this farm, just a few hundred meters from the rigs,
I've still got my calves, I haven't.
Jackie raises her cows.
This is about the third or fourth one this has happened to. Come on, girl.
She says she's lost livestock since drilling began and says the air is terrible.
The gases are just absolutely horrible. Horrible. I mean, there's days you can hardly even come outside. But it filters. I mean, it filters into barns. It filters into buildings. The cattle breathe it. There's no way getting away from it. I mean, you can't hide from air.
But for Alan Hafeman and thousands like him, economic concerns trump environmental ones. Within days of his arrival, he got a well-paying job.
Walked in, I talked to the manager and got the job.
The oil could also transform America's fortunes. Add these reserves in North Dakota to other oil finds in Montana, Colorado and Texas, and the US is set to become the world's largest oil producer in less than 10 years.
This is the African pavilion at the UN talks. The continent is among those at greatest risk because of climate change. It's also one that could benefit most from investment in green technology. With so much desert, solar power is an obvious option. In Morocco, an enormous project is underway which will provide 13% of the electricity demand of the country. The solar power program is vital in a place that has no oil or gas, but an abundance of sun. The project is largely funded by the African Development Bank, and this afternoon I'm joined by Mubarak Diop. Hello.
Hey.
Can you tell me, how is this project going to change the life for Moroccans in general?
I believe it has the potential to change really their lives, since most of the rural areas in Morocco have no electricity, and there is a huge demand for, health centers, for schools, and also for households also to access electricity, because traditional sources are very expensive, and this has the potential really of cutting the prices to level normal, ordinary people can afford.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Of course, the other issue in Durban has been the future of the Kyoto Protocol. Without the deal, we also lose the ideas of carbon credits, which encourages rich countries to invest in green technology in developing ones. These projects don't always go to plan, though. This next example from Uganda, where people have been driven off their land in the name of reforestation.
Olivia and her family used to live here. 2 years ago, this was a thriving village. But the inhabitants had to leave to make way for a tree plantation.
This is where the children's bedroom was. The sitting room was here. And we used to store our things over here.
A few weeks before the official eviction date, one of Olivia's children fell ill. She left 8-year-old Friday at home and went to buy medicine, and claims she found him here, burnt to death after her short absence.
I came back to find my house on fire. I collapsed in horror and went into shock. People had to carry me away.
Olivia says her neighbours didn't see anyone start a fire. Initially, she did not suspect foul play, but then other homes in the area allegedly began catching a blaze, including that of Bibiana Naya Safari.
They burnt our houses. All of our animals were killed. How can I ever get over something like that?
Bibiana claims she used to have 3 acres of land and a proper home. Now, she says, she subsists in this tiny straw hut and cannot afford to send her 5 children to school. Oxfam claims that thousands of people here in western Uganda have been evicted to make way for the new forests company. The firm markets itself as a sustainable timber company and is adamant that it took no part in the evictions. The Ugandan government says it takes full responsibility for the expulsions, but it claims that the process was exemplary and that the evictees were living there illegally.
If we leave people to come and settle and they say, human rights don't touch me, we shall end up with no forest in this country. So that's why let's restore the integrity of the forest.
The government's uncompromising stance leaves Olivia and her family with a tough future. But Uganda is not the only country in the region affected by investors seeking to exploit carbon credits. According to Oxfam and other NGOs, vast tracts of land have been leased or sold to entities seeking carbon credits in Kenya, South Sudan and Tanzania, contributing to an explosion of land deals that threatens the livelihoods of tens of thousands of people across East Africa.
South Africa emits more than 1/3 of the total emissions from the African continent. Yet, like other emerging economies, it's been reluctant to commit to reduction targets. China, for example, has preferred voluntary efforts, something its locals are finding particularly hard to accept.
Wang Jiaming is a goat herder. However, 3 years ago, the local government told him to give up his 102 animals as goats ruined pastures, leading to an increase in desertification, a phenomenon on the rise in China because of climate change. Wang still owns some land, but it's not enough to make ends meet, so he now rents it to the village chief, who hires him back as a worker.
At the time, I thought it was very unfair. But what could I say? It was a national policy. You can't put yourself first in these situations. It was painful, but I just had to forget about my goats.
Local authorities here are also mobilising farmers to plant trees as part of a national policy called the Green Wall of China, which it's hoped will battle climate change and slow the advance of the country's deserts, a policy not always welcomed by the farmers.
We don't earn any salary for planting these trees. Our whole income now depends on our medicinal herb fields. We plant them on land in the mountains. That's our only way to make any money.
Beijing started focusing on climate change in 2000, and where policies have affected rural communities, officials must help farmers as best they can with few resources.
We have to be able to persuade the farmers that this is a good thing, while at the same time helping them cope with the new reality. We tell them that the climate is improving, thanks to them, that sandstorms are diminishing. We tell the farmers it is all thanks to them, and they smile, and they're happy.
Not everyone agrees with this rosy assessment of climate change policies on rural communities. Many argue that this way of tackling global warming benefits big cities and the wealthy at the expense of farmers and the poor in China's countryside.
When the local authorities implement such policies, it is in part to help the local environment, but mostly to help the environment of Beijing. The problem is that it's to the detriment of the farmer, their economic development and their basic subsistence.
After 3 difficult years, Wang is able to get by, but now he has nothing to leave his sons, who have all moved to the city to work in a factory.
That brings us to the end of this very special Environment Edition broadcast from Durban in South Africa. We leave you with more images of the traditional Zulu dance on this very colourful continent. I look forward to seeing you next time.